Why aren't you speaking to me? I questioned, puzzled by the silence. I've chosen not to engage with strangers, came the reply. Accepting this, I prepared to leave. Life at my husband's parents' house was challenging. I anticipated some resistance from my mother-in-law, but the cold shoulder from my father-in-law was unexpected. The atmosphere shifted notably when my sister-in-law, who openly disliked me, moved back in. Our once serene household turned tumultuous. Feeling undeterred, I muttered, "Don't assume I'll regret leaving," and swiftly packed my belongings. Just 2 days after my departure, chaos erupted in their home. My husband and I initially met at work. He was a sales representative, frequently visiting my office. As we collaborated more, I found myself drawn to his kindness and charm. While not conventionally attractive, his personality won me over, and it wasn't long before we started dating. During our conversations, he shared that he grew up in a stable family with loving parents and a sister. My background was starkly different. I had lost my parents young and was raised in an orphanage. It was a difficult past to discuss, but he listened empathetically and reassured me of his unwavering support. Soon after, he proposed, eager to advance our relationship into marriage. Upon meeting his parents and revealing my upbringing in an orphanage, they were supportive and dismissed any notion that it would impact our marriage. This acceptance warmed my heart, although my sister-in-law's reaction suggested she was less pleased. At the time, I brushed off her surprise, attributing it to the initial adjustments of our growing relationship. As our wedding approached, my husband and I contemplated living with his parents. Although it was a serious consideration, I chose to maintain my employment, especially since my husband was due for a transfer. This decision, though small, marked the beginning of many choices I would navigate in my new life as part of their family. Despite considering leaving my job to move with my husband, my career was on an upward trajectory, and I had recently been entrusted with more responsibilities. After discussing it, we agreed that he would relocate alone following our wedding. I relished the idea of enjoying our early days as newlyweds, even planning long weekend visits to ensure we had some quality time together. Moving in with my in-laws right after marrying felt overwhelming, but my husband seemed more at ease with the arrangement, likely hoping it would alleviate his mother's concerns. Since I had lost my parents at a young age, the prospect of being part of a family was appealing, and over time, I had grown fond of my in-laws, despite the challenges of balancing work and family life. One day, an unexpected situation arose that tested our otherwise content living situation. It began when my usually bossy and anxious mother-in-law was out shopping, and I was preparing to clean on my day off. My father-in-law, appearing more frazzled than usual, pulled me aside for a private conversation. "What's going on?" I inquired, noticing his discomfort. He hesitated, then shared his dilemma. "I need to take some time off work," he confessed, explaining how workplace stress and health issues were taking a toll on him. He worried about my mother-in-law's reaction. She was generally caring but prone to anxiety and could be overly critical. For instance, when he had previously taken a sick day, she had chastised him for not being more career-focused like his coworkers. My father-in-law had always been slender, but I noticed he had lost even more weight recently. Despite needing a break, he feared my mother-in-law's reaction to any mention of time off, especially since they depended on the extra income from his overtime hours. Reluctantly, he revealed that he had been sneaking out to see a doctor and now faced the necessity of a break from work. He was in a bind. "If I tell her, she might leave me," he confided, a hint of desperation in his voice. The thought pained me. My in-laws had welcomed me with open arms, regardless of my past in an orphanage, and I felt a strong desire to support them. "Okay, I'll send you money every month to cover your expenses," I offered, determined to help him through this rough patch. "I'm sorry you're going through this. Try to get better soon and return to work when you can." "Thank you so much," he replied, visibly relieved, but still burdened by the secret he had to keep. Following our conversation, he continued to pretend to go to work, maintaining the facade to avoid upsetting my mother-in-law. This secret added a complex layer to our family dynamics, but I was committed to supporting him during this challenging time. While I quietly transferred money to my father-in-law's bank account for his living expenses, my mother-in-law never bothered to check her bank statements closely, so she remained unaware of the transfers. He maintained the illusion of going to work daily, but instead, he sought solace and recovery in a mental health clinic and long walks in the serene mountains. Gradually, his health and spirits improved, and it seemed he might soon return to work. However, an unexpected turn of events shook our household dynamics. After a significant argument with her husband, my sister-in-law returned to her parents' home. "There's nothing like being back home," she declared with relief, venting about her strained marriage. "I thought I'd lose my mind staying with that foolish husband of mine. I'll be staying here for a while, so you'll need to cook for me too." From our first family gathering, it was clear she harbored resentment towards me. At her wedding, she grimaced throughout and later criticized my appearance to my face, suggesting her brother could have married someone more attractive. She also made hurtful remarks about my upbringing in an orphanage, openly calling it an embarrassment. Given that she had moved out after her marriage, I initially thought her presence wouldn't be a permanent issue in my life. Her sudden return, driven by marital troubles, seemed temporary. However, her stay extended, and her attitude grew increasingly bitter, particularly towards my father-in-law. Despite this, my mother-in-law had always treated me kindly, and I believed she would defend me against any harsh comments from my sister-in-law. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. One day, after returning from work, I sensed a shift in my mother-in-law's demeanor. She seemed distant and cold. Concerned, I approached her. "Is something bothering you?" I asked gently. Her response was chilling. "Did you know you've been talking about me behind my back?" she accused. I was stunned. "I've never spoken ill of you. You've always been kind, and I'm grateful. Why would I say bad things about you?" I responded, confused and hurt. She left the room abruptly, leaving me to face my smirking sister-in-law in the hallway. "Looks like you're not in her good books anymore. Did your true colors finally show? Being from an orphanage, your background does matter, huh? It's best not to gossip about people," she taunted. I defended myself, bewildered by the accusation. "Oh, the neighbors mentioned it when I came back. They said you've been speaking poorly of her all along," my sister-in-law claimed, adding a layer of mystery with her vague reference to unnamed neighbors. "I've never said any of those things." "Stop making things up," I protested, but my words fell on deaf ears. "Oh, how disrespectful, Mom. She's calling me a liar and being mean to me," my sister-in-law exclaimed, twisting my words as she retreated to my mother-in-law's room. Following this incident, my sister-in-law's behavior worsened. She fabricated complaints, claiming I mistreated her by making her sleep in the hallway and insisting she'd take the last turn for the bath since she was merely a guest. Each time she complained, I found myself explaining and defending my actions and words, trying to clear misunderstandings in a home that had once promised a new family and a fresh start. As time passed, it became evident that my mother-in-law was increasingly influenced by my sister-in-law's manipulative words. The situation grew more complicated when my sister-in-law prolonged her stay, and I couldn't help but wonder if she intended to make her visit permanent. This thought weighed heavily on me each day as I returned home from work, a place that once felt welcoming but now felt cold and silent. "I'm back," I announced softly upon entering the house, a stark contrast to the warm greetings I used to receive. The living room was quiet. "I'll start making dinner," I said, trying to keep the routine normal. To my surprise, as I walked into the dining area, I found my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law already eating sushi together. My sister-in-law smirked. "Oh, looks like someone who isn't family is here. You weren't planning on having sushi, were you?" My mother-in-law continued eating, her eyes glued to the television, ignoring my presence. "If you wanted sushi, you should have told me." "I came straight home from shopping," I replied, trying to hide my hurt. "No one mentioned they wanted that," my sister-in-law retorted, dismissing me completely. Then, turning to our parents, she cheerfully added, "Hey Mom, Dad, I went out with my friends today and brought back some delicious pudding. Let's eat together." They all indulged in the dessert, ignoring me entirely. Exhausted from work and the emotional strain, I retreated to my room, too weary to confront the blatant exclusion. The following day, my sister-in-law, preparing for another outing with friends, asked me to drive her to the station. "I can't. It's a weekday and I have work. Besides, we're not even going in the same direction, and you want to leave around noon," I explained, my patience wearing thin. "Just take the day off. It's fine. Your cute little sis-in-law just wants a ride. She hasn't had a chance to relax since she got married, right? Can't you be a bit nicer to her now?" she pleaded, trying to manipulate the situation. "With all due respect, didn't you go out with friends last night after getting a late call? It seems like you've been going out almost every day since you came back. I have work. Please take the bus or train," I countered, standing my ground as my mother-in-law and sister-in-law whispered to each other. I left for work, determined not to let the situation escalate further. However, the tipping point came that evening. Work had delayed me, and I arrived home late, soaked from the rain, groceries in hand, bracing for yet another cold reception. As expected, they were eating dinner without acknowledging me, continuing the pattern of the previous days. But what awaited me in the courtyard was far worse than any cold shoulder. In the middle of the garden, illuminated by the dim porch light, lay a pile of my belongings. My designer bag that I had bought with my first paycheck, shoes that were a birthday gift from my husband, and even my work computer, all drenched from the rain. My sister-in-law stood there smirking triumphantly. Having the stranger's things in the house grosses me out, so I threw them out. "Flaunting a designer bag like that, how arrogant of you," she sneered. Stunned, I turned to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. "Why didn't you stop her? Have I done something to make you believe her lies about me, bad-mouthing you and bullying her? Aren't you upset with her for what she did?" I pleaded for some sign of support. My mother-in-law avoided my gaze and remained silent, then finally muttered, "I can't talk to strangers. I can't be friendly with someone who's not family." Hurt and bewildered, I asked, "Where's my father-in-law?" He had been the one I supported during his time off, the only one who seemed to appreciate my efforts to blend into this family. As the silence stretched on, the harsh reality of my situation became painfully clear. I had been managing the finances in our household, a task I undertook out of gratitude for being welcomed into the family. But when conflict arose, I found myself longing for some support, especially from my father-in-law, whom I had financially supported during his time off. As the tensions escalated, I hoped he would stand by me. But when the moment came, he merely walked past without a word and retreated to his room. "That's it for me," I murmured to myself, feeling a mix of resignation and resolve. My sister-in-law, seizing the opportunity to twist the knife further, sneered, "Oh, are you upset?" "I'm sorry, not honestly." I never liked you from the start, coming from an institution and all. Just don't regret leaving. Good riddance. I retorted sharply. The decision was clear. It was time to leave. I quickly packed my belongings, aware that even though my father-in-law might worry about losing my financial support, he didn't make any move to stop me or defend me. His silence was the final straw. Driven by a need to escape the toxic environment, I didn't even discuss these issues with my husband before leaving. I suspected that my mother-in-law hadn't informed him of my sister-in-law's return or the ensuing conflicts. If he had known, surely he would have reached out, knowing the strained relations between us. But there had been no word from him on the matter, and a part of me feared that perhaps he too was influenced by his family's narrative. With a heavy heart, I got into my car and drove straight to my husband's new job location far away. All the while, doubts about his loyalty and our future together clouded my mind. Perhaps he sided with his family, I feared, and if so, could divorce be the only solution? Upon arriving at his apartment, he wasn't home yet, likely held up by end-of-month work. As I waited, the lights in the apartment signaled my arrival, and soon my husband walked in, surprised and delighted. "What, you're here? You should have told me you were coming. I would have come back sooner. What a pleasant surprise." His face lit up with a genuine smile, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd faced at his family's home. The mix of relief and humiliation overwhelmed me, and tears started to form. "What's wrong? Did I do something seriously? What's going on?" he asked, his concern palpable. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain everything. Told him about supporting his father during his medical leave, his sister's return and prolonged stay, her lies that turned his mother against me, and the cold treatment that escalated to my belongings being left out in the rain. Through tears and pauses, I laid bare the painful reality of my days with his family. After hearing everything, my husband was apologetic. He regretted being too wrapped up in work to notice the signs and deeply lamented his family's behavior towards me. He assured me that I wouldn't have to return to that house or interact with them if I chose not to. His response provided a sliver of hope that perhaps, with his support, we could navigate through this turmoil together. Despite the possibility of forgiveness someday, my husband was resolute about severing ties with his parents and sister. He also firmly declared that he would cease all financial support to his father. That night, I felt an immense burden lift from my shoulders. The stress I had been carrying dissolved, and I slept soundly beside him for the first time in ages. After leaving my in-laws' house, I never returned. Commuting to my husband's out-of-state location wasn't feasible, but fortunately, I had already arranged with my company to work remotely. My job didn't require constant office presence, and many of my colleagues were also working from home. Although I still needed to visit the office a few times each month, some of my colleagues lived even farther away, so remote work was a well-established practice. Living under the same roof as my in-laws and enduring my sister-in-law's antagonism had kept me from truly enjoying married life. Now, as we settled into our new routine, it felt like we were finally starting our lives as newlyweds. I was setting up my remote workstation when unexpectedly my sister-in-law reached out to me. It turned out that the day after I left was my father-in-law's payday, a day my mother-in-law typically managed by transferring a portion of his paycheck to their household account. This time, however, she was unable to do so, and only then discovered that I had been supporting them financially during his time off. "Hey, why didn't you tell me you were covering the living expenses?" she demanded over the phone. He asked me not to. "He didn't want you to know, so I respected his wishes." I responded calmly. "We're running out of money for living expenses, and there's no one here to cook or do laundry. The place is a mess." As his wife, you need to come back and take care of these things and send money quickly. She continued, her voice desperate. How heartless, she exclaimed. I've already told you I have no intention of going back to that house or being treated like your maid. Why should I help people who despise me, ruin my things, and treat me this way? I replied, aren't you his wife? Without your help, we can't pay the bills or even shop. She continued, her voice desperate. That's exactly why I'm saying it. I'm an outsider, so it's none of my business, right? I reflected on her own words. I hung up the phone, ignoring her further complaints. Despite her and my mother-in-law's attempts to reach me with calls and messages, I stood firm in my decision. No longer would I allow myself to be drawn into their chaos or be manipulated by guilt. It was a liberating moment, affirming my resolve to start anew with my husband, free from the toxic ties that had once bound us. Despite the persistent calls from my in-laws, I chose to ignore them completely. However, when my husband returned from work and finally answered the phone, he addressed them with unwavering firmness. I will never forgive how you treated her. I'm not sending her back to you, and I'm not coming back either. I don't see you as my family anymore. Leave my wife alone, or you'll regret it, he declared. Considering how much my sister-in-law idolized her brother and my mother-in-law's dependency on him, this declaration must have come as a shock to them. A few days later, my father-in-law called, his voice laden with desperation. He explained how difficult life had become living with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and begged me to resume the financial help. Although they had welcomed me into the family despite my orphanage background, their lack of support when I needed it most made me realize I owed them nothing. I will never assist you again, I told him firmly and ended the call. Subsequently, in an act of sheer desperation, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law shamelessly showed up at my workplace, knowing their potential for creating disturbances. I had already briefed my company about the situation, and security was alerted immediately. They caused a scene, demanding that the company force me to send money back home. When my husband found out, he was incensed and advised me to report them to the police. My colleagues were incredibly supportive, encouraging me to focus on my work and my life with my husband, far removed from the toxic environment of my in-laws. The stress took its toll on my father-in-law, whose health declined significantly due to the pressure exerted by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Eventually, he had no choice but to quit his job. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law attempted to return to her husband's family, but he refused to take her back. The town quickly caught wind of her dramatic antics at my workplace, exacerbating her already troubled marriage, which promptly led to their decision to divorce. Without any support, my in-laws and sister-in-law moved to a modest apartment and started working part-time jobs to make ends meet. As for my husband and me, we were finally enjoying peaceful, fulfilling days together. Our home became a sanctuary of love and support, far from the strife we had endured. Recently, we received joyous news. We are expecting a child. The anticipation of meeting our baby fills us with happiness. We are eagerly awaiting this new addition to our family, cherishing every moment of this special time together.